Welcome to Dead Air. You're about to hear from people who know houses can be haunted because they've lived in one. I bought my first house in 2003 and was over the moon to be a homeowner. Shortly after moving in, two of my neighbors began joking with me about the ghost in my house. Well, I thought they were joking, so I just played along, pretending I had seen one and it was no big deal. Well, as time went on that summer, I met more and more of my neighbors, and they all brought up the same topic. Finally, an elderly woman on the block who was quite kind and friendly told me the story after I'd asked her. I knew she wasn't going to screw with my head, which is why I asked in the first place. It turned out the previous owner purchased the home and never lived there because she said it was haunted. Sounds in the night of footsteps and sobbing, and glimpses of a man sitting in the kitchen covered in blood. One of my neighbors helped with the renovations of the house and said that he was putting up drywall when he felt something lift up his dreadlocks. One day, I went to a small neighborhood video store to rent a movie. I had to fill out a form with my demographic data and then my credit card info. The owner of the store looked at the form and said, "Oh my God, you live in that house?" I asked her what she meant, and she explained that her former employee had committed suicide in my house. She came to the house as soon as she'd heard, but the house had been taped off by police as a potential crime scene. She told me that he had just moved into the house with his partner and called his mom because he wanted to invite her over to meet his partner and come out to her. This was in the early 90s when being gay was a big deal. His mother already knew he was gay because he bought a house with a man, and she disowned him right over the phone. That same week, he received a letter from an HIV testing center stating he had tested positive for HIV. This is when HIV was a death sentence. He then sat at the kitchen table, ate a bowl of cereal, and shot himself in the head with a revolver. Since then, she has had multiple paranormal experiences in the store, with videos flying off shelves and even levitating. The most I have experienced is sounds at night, sounds of Cheerios being poured into a bowl. I don't eat cereal, and sounds of sobbing in the kitchen. I often awaken to both. I remember my grandmother saying, "When the dead come to you, they want something. Perform an act of charity in their name and pray for them." So I did. I sat down at the kitchen table one night, lit a candle, and told him that each night I would recite a novena prayer for him before a lit candle. On the 9th night of the first novena to Saint Anthony, patron saint of lost souls, I heard uncontrollable sobbing. I felt a strong presence of grief and despair, and the sound of hyperventilating breathing, as though someone could not catch their breath. I sat in the presence of this knowing it was not malignant, but rather a connection of intimacy and compassion, of which he was in need. For 45 days I said a novena prayer before a lit candle for his soul, and had a mass said in his name. A few times I had awakened to feel his presence standing over my bed, but knew it was not a malignant presence. This still happens from time to time, but less and less frequently. I live with my stepmom, dad, little sister, and brother in a haunted house. There's always been weird, unexplained noises, shadows, and the feeling of being watched here. But something happened recently that really takes the cake. It all started with just random noises and weird sounds and progressively got worse. The first signs were shadows that you catch with the side of your eye and no one being there. was like hearing something climb up my bunk bed ladder and my bed bouncing like someone hopped in. But today, when I got off work, there was only my little brother's truck at home. We have a loud stereo in our room, and we jam it loud when no one is home. Anyway, he was the only one there, or so I thought. So I get off work, see his truck, and think, oh, I guess he's home. But he wasn't. When I get close to the house, I could hear the stereo real loud, but couldn't make out the song. When I touched the door to open it, I could feel the door rattling from the bass. As soon as I unlocked the door and opened it, all was dead silent and our room door was open. So I'm scared AF at this point. I slowly walk to our room and am standing in the doorway. There was no one in there. I laugh and say, "Bro, this isn't funny, where are you?" There was no answer, just silence. Then I went to step into my room, and right when my foot picked up, my door slammed the shit out of me, pushing me into my room and onto the floor. I got up real fast, opened the door, and no one was there. I looked everywhere in the house, and there was no one there. So I called my brother and asked, "Where the fuck are you hiding?" And he says, "What are you talking about? I'm at church. I rode with Mom." I said, "Okay, I'll be there." Mind you, I hate church. I'm still thinking when I get there, he's still going to be at home hiding. But nope. When I got there, I found him, and he could tell I was scared. He said, "What happened? I've never seen you like this." I told him, and he got white as a ghost. He said, "Last night I heard a sound while you were asleep." I went to check it out and saw a little girl in the living room watching the TV that was just fuzz. When she saw me, she smiled real creepy and ran into a wall and disappeared. So now I have no idea what to do. Everyone in the house knows it's haunted, but it's a big house and we got it for cheap, so we can't move. The house I currently live in was built sometime in the 80s. Only one family previously owned the home, and they were a married couple. The husband died, but we're not sure if he died in the house or not. Some small encounters have happened several times, like every picture in the hallway upstairs always being tilted even when we fix them. Everyone hears footsteps on the vents downstairs even if the vents aren't going. These are little things that have happened and no one has thought much of, but a lot of creepier occurrences have happened. The first one was when my grandma was over. She said she heard my voice calling her down to the basement 2 nights in a row. I wasn't even home when she said this happened. Then about a year later, we had a lot of paranormal activity for nights in a row. On the first night, me, my brother, and my stepdad were discussing something at the top of the stairs. All of a sudden, the picture hung above the stairwell, lifted up off the hooks, got pushed forward, and fell to the bottom of the stairs. Me and my stepdad instantly started freaking out because the way we hung this picture up wouldn't allow for it to be taken off without someone moving it. The night after that, I wasn't at home, and my stepdad and Mum were asleep downstairs. My stepdad heard someone open our front door. You can especially hear our front and back door because we have doorbells for our dogs to ring. He heard heavy human footsteps going down the hallway upstairs. He said he ran upstairs to check who it was, only to find no one and nothing. My mum claimed she couldn't hear the footsteps and couldn't even hear my stepdad walking around looking for whoever broke into our house. After that night, my mum and stepdad were watching TV upstairs and heard a little girl laughing downstairs. They both looked at each other and then ran downstairs, but again they were met with nothing, except that they heard tiny footsteps running up the stairs behind them. Then that night, in bed, my mum heard heavy footsteps running in the hallway upstairs. My stepdad couldn't hear it, but still checked it out, but didn't see anything. 2 nights later, I had my own experience. I believe this is the creepiest experience or encounter that has occurred the whole time. At this time, I had my bedroom upstairs. At first, I heard the doorbells jingle, and then someone walked up the stairs, went to the back door and tried to open it but failed. They came back around and walked to the hallway light switches. I heard the switches flip on and off like 50 times, but no light came on. The footsteps followed down the hallway, but stopped at the bathroom. I then heard rustling, as if someone was searching for something in the bathroom, and then it suddenly stopped. I didn't hear anything for like 5 minutes, but then after the moment of silence, I heard breathing outside of my door. I started crying from how terrified I was. The breathing stopped, but then I heard my door open, but my door didn't open. This was the last time something like this happened for a while. Around a year later, again me, my mum and my stepdad were sitting in the kitchen. Me and my mum both suddenly stopped the conversation we were having to talk about the man we both saw, who walked into the kitchen and back out. We both saw him twice, and we both saw him with a trench coat, top hat, and he was quite tall. My stepdad said he didn't see anything, but he felt a weird presence and a weird tension. Nothing has happened since the last incident, except the pictures and vents, but it's still creepy as F. My house has been in my family for a couple of generations, so it's a bit old, maybe approximately 80 years, probably more. Everyone who lives or has lived/stayed for an extended period of time in my house has experienced something unexplainable that we all just chalk up to ghosts. My family is spiritual too, or just enough where it's a bit more than the normal person, as in we sage and use incense to cleanse when the vibes get bad. I'm moving soon to a brand new house that's being built, so I'm going to lose all the ghost buddies that have terrorized or taken care of me my whole life. Here's some highlights I've had. Laying in bed late one night and trying to get to sleep, I have my foot out of my covers and slightly hanging off of my bed. Something grabs it and pulls. I get tugged off my bed and my bed is moved a whole ½ meter. I was scared absolutely shitless because nobody was in my room, and before that my dog refused to come into my room. I just slowly went back onto my bed and curled up in a ball under my covers. One night I go into the laundry room to see my brother's ex-partner standing at the top of the stairs, looking pale and terrified as she calls out for my brother. I come up behind her and ask what she's doing. She jumps a bit but calms down, and eventually my brother comes back upstairs. My yard is pitch black at night, so I just assumed she was wondering where he was, until later I found out that she saw an old-looking lady in a Victorian-style dress near the tree in my backyard, just standing there. Everyone in my house has had some sort of experience of her. My experience with her is I was getting clothes off the line, and she just was there, staring at me. I nearly died. One time I entered my room and it was really, really hot. like boiling hot, but it was winter. I'm Australian and living in a tropical area, so I'm used to heat. But in the winter it never really goes above 20 degrees Celsius, which is freezing for me, and had a really negative and heavy atmosphere. I was so tired and it was after work, so I just said, "Yo, can you fuck off right now? It's not the time." And after a couple of seconds my room cooled down and went back to normal. I was in my shower one time at 11 p.m. when I heard my mum laughing right outside the door. I just about froze and went dead silent because she usually goes to sleep at about 8 p.m. After a couple of seconds of silence, I hear footsteps walking away from the door and into my backyard. Then I hear my dog absolutely book it through the laundry down the stairs and start barking and screaming her head off. She has 3 types of barks: her playful, high-pitched one, her warning one when someone's just walking down the street, and then her guard dog one that's loud, deep, and terrifying. She was using her guard dog one. My younger sister has so many stories of her toys just flying off the shelves in her old room, and back when I was in that room, the same thing happened. What also happened was the closet opening and closing throughout the night. Let me tell you guys, I'm 16 and I still struggle to open and close it since the slidey bits are rusted and the door is heavy. When I was a child, my great-grandfather died, and after his funeral I was sitting on my bed and crying to myself because I missed him, and this was my first experience with mortality. 2 people entered my room and started comforting me. I recognized one as my great-grandpa, but I had absolutely no clue who the second person was. That was until a couple of years later I saw a photo of my great-grandma, great-grandpa's wife, and realized it was her. She died before I was born. All my life I've been told she's my guardian angel, and is the reason why I managed to come out alive and okay from so many deathly situations. My middle name is her name because when I was born, I was a couple of hours old when my great-grandpa got to see me, and I apparently gave him a look that my grandma used to give him all the time, and he said, "God, she looks like my great-grandma." At night you will always hear footsteps walking down my hall. Either it's the house settling or it's someone walking, and most of the time you can hear the distinct footsteps. Sometimes I also hear the sound of my dead dog crying. It kind of freaks me out. If I have my hand hanging off my bed at night, I can feel someone holding it. I also feel that feeling of someone brushing their thumb over my knuckles. It's kind of nice. It's not nice, however, when I get the feeling of hot breath on my hand. My house is 2 stories. The first story has the formerly front room, which is now my brother's room and my pop's workshop. We live upstairs, but hear tapping at the windows all the time. Plus I hear knocks on my door all the time. I know better than to open my door when I hear 3 knocks, but sometimes I hear rapid, loud knocking on my door, and when I open it, there's nothing there. The final little thing about my house, which is more sad than scary, but my pop died last month, and he spent a lot of time under the house in his workshop doing stuff since he was a builder. Nobody can go under there now since there's a heavy feeling of being watched. Not watched in a bad way, but just watched. Like someone's observing you. I hope he's watching over us. But I also hope he was able to pass on peacefully. You've been listening to Dead Air. Like and subscribe for more. Good night.